What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing another video today. It's here. Rostermania has officially started. We got a decent amount of news yesterday, Wednesday afternoon. We're going to recap some of the information that broke on the timeline. I also have some updates on a couple of teams. I think in general, Rostermania is right now is we're starting to get a sense of some targets for some teams, some of which are, getting to the point where people are close to getting contracts agreed to. Some of it is more, here is a top target for a team to still making it work. And there are a couple of teams right now that are kind of on the edge and maybe making a change, not making a change. So we're going to discuss those as well. Let's start and dive in on all the news. All right. So just to give sort of an itinerary of this video, we're going to talk about LA Thieves, Miami, Carolina, and then I've got some updates on Boston, Vegas, and Seattle. I would say right now where Rostermania is at is I probably expect 4 to potentially 5 teams to make a change during this window. It depends on what you call like as a change. It could be, like the Carolina situation, we'll get to it, where TJ goes from signing a 14-day to a permanent deal. Obviously, you see the Miami situation. And as far as Thieves and a couple other teams, there might be some new players going into the lineup. I also want to talk on something real quick before we dive in, and we'll get to it during the course of this video. I felt like yesterday there was this big rush to report true but not complete information on Twitter, and I kind of take exception to some of that. Let's actually dive into Thieves, and I can kind of speak on this more real quick. All right, so it looks like LA Thieves might be making 2 changes. Change 1, Jake is reporting that LA Thieves are signing Kremp for Major 2, and he's expected to replace Joe Deceives. No real surprise that Kremp and some other players from FC Black are getting the call up. They played really well, pretty much all online leading up to the Boston Major, and then obviously were your Boston Open champs, winning pretty soundly in that grand final. And I thought Kremp was probably one of their best, if not their best player that weekend. So therefore, I'm not surprised to go into LA Thieves. Now, some of you might say, well, why is Afro not leaving? Why is, Joe going? I don't think it's as straight up of a decision as you might think. I don't think either Joe or Marcus did a lot to make their place safe on the team. And my guess is a combination of, performances from Joe at the actual major, in which I thought that he didn't play all that well. I'm sure there's some backroom chemistry stuff with sort of how practice is going. I think in general, when I watch Joe play, he seems like, there's potential there, but like a bunch of other rookies and younger players that are in the CDL right now, or we've seen over the last couple of years, I just think he needs more seasoning to really get where Thieves wants to go. So I'm not surprised that they are going to keep Afro, at least that's what it seems like right now, and replace Joe for Kremp. And obviously Kremp was in the league last year, so excited to see what he can do getting back in the mix. So I want to talk about this tweet. We're going to talk about what's going to happen potentially with Cam. So it looks like that's the second change. Looks like Cammy is going to get replaced by somebody. Now, Rotation tweeted this last night. LA Thieves are targeting Nasty to replace Cammy, which I think is actually an accurate tweet. There's nothing wrong with the information in this tweet, but I think the context of this tweet is very important, and it's not really lacking what I thought even at the time was complete information that, Nasty is one of a number of players that potentially might come into the Thief situation. And Jake reported this morning, early East Coast time, along with, all the Lewis Hamilton stuff going on with Ferrari, which, I can make a whole video on that one. Jake really provided the context is what I had heard yesterday, which is that, they're thinking about Nasty. There are some things they need to consider, and they have some other options. They haven't quite decided what they want to do yet. They've decided that probably they want to move on from Cam. I really like Nasty. I think we talked about a lot over the course of the last 16, 18 months. I think that London team was kind of a mess last year, and I thought Nasty at times played pretty good. They had him in a bad role, yada, yada, yada. The only thing with this move, and why I think it's not potentially a locked-in thing, is one is I don't know Nasty's visa situation, right? Maybe his P1 visa is still active, although under London, so they'd have to transfer, which, doable. But if he doesn't have a visa, if his previous P1 is expired, they have to get a new one. It's not going to be easy to do that overnight. So my guess is there's still some due diligence kind of going on there if that's their top target. But there are potentially other AR or sub options out there. I think, or just names I could throw out, like everybody else on the FC Black team, from Exceed to Brack to ASIM. We've all been running ARs this season. Obviously, Lunars and Geo have also played pretty well. I'm getting kind of in the mix in that situation. So there are a lot of options if Thieves want to dip into challengers to replace his spot. But as far as I've heard, I can confirm what Jake is, that this decision is not 100% yet. This will kind of probably firm up over the next day or two as Thieves kind of makes a decision on that front. Again, I want to come full circle on what I said a few minutes ago about my issue with Twitter yesterday. People trying to get the scoop, but not giving full context. So Ace obviously sent this tweet, if you saw yesterday, about being listed on the Call of Duty website under Boston Breach. The problem is, as I tweeted yesterday, is that the CDL website is not accurate. They haven't updated it. And I actually completely forgot about this until someone tweeted at me yesterday, Shashao, who did that. Like, Kremp's been listed there since last year. The Call of Duty website, the roster page is a mess. Kremp used to be on the team, obviously, last season, and they haven't updated it. So this really isn't like breaking news. And Ace eventually replied and said that, you know, Zed said on his stream that it's a bug. Look, at the end of the day, I just caution everybody trying to report on the news. Make sure you know what is 100%. Make sure if you can, you give as much context as possible. Just the one-liner tweets like this. Yes, this information might be accurate, just like the Ace tweet. I wouldn't say the now listed, but he is actually listed on the Boston Breach website. If you go there, he's still there. But I just think the context of this stuff is always so important. And I always recommend for the sort of people trying to rush to break news, make sure you can include as much context as possible because it's all super important. Next up, we have the Miami Heretics. And I don't think this one is a super surprise. Eric Boom is going to get called back into the lineup to replace Juan, aka Journey. And Journey is going to replace Eric Boom's spot on the Eric's Challengers team that played pretty well at Boston. I'm not really surprised here. I don't think Juan played fantastic through a majority of the season. I think he had a couple of great series, but it also swung a lot heavy in the other direction at times. And I don't think he had a great land. I think Eric's probably a little bit better at this game than Juan is right now. So I always expect a little bit of juggling with this Miami Heretics lineup. So I'm not surprised Eric's coming in. I actually think it's a great move for Miami, and that's why they signed 5 players to give themselves the flexibility to do this. So curious to see how Miami can play because they got dead last at the last event, which is utterly disappointing. This team should be better than that. They should be getting top 6, top 8. Let's see if they can kick on from here with Eric. All right, and then one more kind of firm move before I get into some of the stuff I've kind of surfaced overnight. TJ is expected to sign a permanent deal with the Carolina Royal Ravens. As you might recall, he was sort of on a 14-day contract last couple of weeks when they decided to make changes before the last week of the online split before Boston. And they were actually playing pretty decent. Went to the event, beat New York, got top 8. Like, I think for Carolina, look, the issue is that they are not a team that's going to be getting the top tier free agents. They're not a team that is a destination team right now. So, you know, when they find someone who's a plus player and is playing well, and I thought TJ definitely had some bright moments, you know, lock him in. And that's kind of what they did with TJ here. Do I think this is going to make or long-term Carolina is going to be incredible? I don't know. I still think looking at this team that from a slaying perspective, they're still pretty weak. But I think for Carolina, and something to kind of keep in mind is that they actually have a pretty favorable major 2 schedule in which they avoid Toronto and FaZe, who are the 2 best teams in the game right now. I'm actually going to read this to you right now. Carolina's schedule is New York, Boston, Seattle, Optic, LAG, Miami, and Vegas. So there are some decent kind of landmine mid-pack teams in there. They got to play Optic, got to play New York in an instant sort of rematch from the major, which is kind of hilarious. I do think avoiding Toronto and FaZe, which are like automatic L's for this team, I think there's an opportunity for them to find 2 or 3 wins in there and make winners bracket. They got to kick on from here and continue to acquire points in the CDL because they're going to be fighting for a champ spot all season. And they got a lot to improve. They're still 2-11 in S&D. Like, we got to clean up that game mode if you're Carolina. All right, so that is kind of the all of the reporting that surfaced in regards to these 3 teams. My confidence level for each move is like 9 or 10. Thieves are making changes. Miami, I think this one's a lock. And Carolina, this one's a lock. So we have at least 3 teams. I was hearing some like chatter last week that people thought there might be no changes before this event. We're getting at least 3. But let me talk about 3 more teams that might be making a change in the next couple of days. All right, first up, we have the Boston Breach, and I actually take back what I said in the video earlier. It looks like they finally have removed Kremp from this page, so bravo to CDL for fixing something that's been there for months. Word on the block, and this is per multiple sources around the league, the expectation is that Boston is exploring a change, likely to replace Capsule on this roster. A lot of people have been talking to this Boston team over the course of the last 4 to 5 days and really trying to convince them that making a change is kind of in their best interest. Whether they do it, not really sure. My expectation is they will replace Capsule with probably either a fast AR or a sub player. So you can kind of take a think on sort of who you might come into that spot. But we'll see if Boston makes a move because I don't think it's 100% right now. I don't think it's locked. But a sense from talking to multiple sources around the league, they're definitely exploring it. I don't blame them. I think there's a lot of potential with Capsule, but I think as you saw in the series they played or the one series they played at the event this weekend, you know, he's got potential, but there's also a huge kind of floor with him where he doesn't always meet, doesn't make the right decisions. And his Boston team's like kind of on the cusp of being really good, but they're not quite there yet. And maybe one change might fix that up. All right, next up we have the Vegas Legion. Talking to folks behind the scene, there's a lot of chatter that this team is exploring making a change. They haven't committed to an exact player to make a change. And I have heard that it may not necessarily be the player you think, aka Purge, the one getting dropped from this roster. So that's interesting. What I have heard is that Vegas haven't 100% aligned on who they want, and they haven't committed just yet to a change. Now, my expectation for that, and the reason why my sources speculate, is that Vegas is not necessarily the destination team for players. They don't really necessarily, like, if they kind of pick a player they want, because of the ongoing situations with Thieves, who's still kind of potentially figuring out what they want to do with Cammy. One more team we'll get to in a moment that I think might be sort of had the pecking order. We talked about Boston 3 seconds ago. Like, there are a bunch of teams above Vegas that I think they have to kind of wait on to see if other players make decisions before they can maybe make an offer that they'll accept. But I expect for Vegas, there's a good chance they make a move, but if they cannot get the player they want, I won't be surprised they stick. So this is a very fluid situation. I may have more news on this probably the next day or so. And then the last one here is Seattle Surge. What I've heard about Seattle is at the moment, they're not considering a change to their lineup. They actually played not too bad at Major 1, but this team does need to figure out how to get better in respawns because the S&D is solid to good, although against top teams, you know, they get kind of exposed again, not being great at respawn. They lose some searches against better teams. You see kind of the recipe and where they need to upgrade. I think the obvious change is probably, you know, replacing Alec for a little bit of a faster player and trying to go for more speed. But as far as that I've heard with Seattle, they haven't yet kind of dipped their toe or leg or foot or any real body part in the waters that are a roster changes yet. So if that changes, I'll let you know. There's a couple of teams that we've talked about in this video have said in the beginning, or been telling people in the beginning of this period they were going to make a change, but they ended up making a change. If I have some more information on Seattle, I'll let you know. But at the moment, it does not seem like much is going on there, and it seems like they might be sticking. So yeah, that's it for this video. To recap, it seems like LA Thieves are going to make probably 1, if not 2 changes. Eric will be coming in from Miami, so that's a confirmed change. And then it looks like TJ is going to be locked in, and we'll count that as a change because he's kind of changing his contract status on that front. And then as far as Boston, seems like they might be making a change. Vegas, depending on players available, might make a change. In Seattle, seems like they're standing. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. I'm sure we'll probably do a flank episode next couple of days. You'll get more of my thoughts and the thoughts of my co-hosts on that. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. As always, guys, we will see you on the next one.